Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Derek. Today's discussion is going to be about fantasy versus reality. One of the things that we tend to do as insecure people, whether we're depressed or got anxiety, is we spend a lot of our time looking at our past to what brought us to our current situation. And we dwell on the things that we don't like about our current life. We look back at our past and say, I didn't like the way this went, I didn't like the way that went. And then we spend a lot of time thinking about future events. Now, while there's nothing wrong with having fantasies and dreams, it's just part of the problem is most people don't really understand how they are responsible for making those a possibility. Sometimes, in a lot of ways, we are a victim of our own selves because we actually can prevent our dreams and fantasies from ever being remotely true. So the thing that you got to understand, and again, there's nothing wrong with having dreams and fantasies, and I'll talk about that at the end. But there's just a couple of things that happen when we spend a lot of our time thinking about the future, and if we're not doing it correctly, it's you're just going to cause more problems, and you're just going to go through this loop of 2 years from now nothing's really going to have changed and nothing's really going to improve. The first thing you have to understand is that when it comes to our fantasies and our fantasies and dreams and goals, pertaining to anything, whether it's something we want to do for a job, a hobby, relationships, is that your fantasies will never be 100% real. And what that means is you're never going to have a scenario or situation in your life that will ever 100% be like how you think it is in your head. Issue number 2 has to do with the fact that we tend to, especially in terms of relationships and meeting people, is we tend to put a lot of unrealistic expectations on somebody else to act and behave in a manner that benefits us. And then, which brings me to point number 3, which is that your fantasies are always 100% completely self-serving. What that means is you create the scenarios and the situations that you want to play out in your head, and you control every aspect, including the people in your head. But in reality, we just don't have that much control. We only can control ourselves. So just a couple of examples just to kind of help you guys understand what I mean. And I'll use my life. And this starts with just understanding that that the reality was never going to be like the fantasy, and how I was a victim of my own thoughts and the things that I needed to do to understand and change the way I thought to achieve my goals. One of which, as you guys might see here, is I got a guitar here, and I started trying to learn the guitar right around the age of 18. And I started out just taking these music classes just in high school, and essentially what happened is I wasn't happy with what we were being taught. We were being taught, Mary had a little lamb and things like that, and that to me was not really what I wanted. So I would learn how something called tablature. It's kind of unimportant to the conversation, but it was just something that I thought was an easy way to learn the guitar, and I really tried to teach myself. Now, I always, like anybody at 18, 19 years old, I had dreams of becoming somebody famous, maybe being in a rock band, and just being wealthy and living that lifestyle. And what was interesting is that as it came to the guitar, whenever there came up, it's a very a lot of time is spent practicing, and you get very little reward for the time you put in. But when you actually get to those points, it's a pretty cool thing. But I spent a lot of time just dwelling on wanting to be able to play this guitar and get really good. But the problem was is I wasn't putting forth the work. I wasn't putting forth the effort. I could spend years dreaming up all these scenarios and situations where, you know, I would be up on stage somewhere, you know, playing cool songs, and it took a long time. It took me a long time before I realized that whatever obstacles there were, which came with practicing, and the frustration that came with practicing and things like that, if I wasn't willing to work through that and put in the time and put in the effort, then my fantasy was never going to be even remotely close to even happening. Now, many years later, I finally came to that understanding, and I'm much older now, so these dreams of being a rock star have kind of, which I'm okay with, but I do enjoy playing this thing. I do enjoy playing with people, and I really progressed for myself to a place where I can potentially play with other musicians and start a band, just playing covers and things like that. But it took that understanding. It took that the person that was holding me back the most from achieving those, you know, even just the goal of being able to play the guitar well, that I was responsible. You know, nobody else was holding me back. Nobody else. It was just the way that I wasn't attacking the dream and the fantasy, and the realization that it's going to take from point A to point B to point C to point D, that's the only way you're ever going to even come close. Number two starts with the problems with that people have when they fantasize about, say, relationships. And we can sit down and we can process a whole scheme of ideas where we want a specific somebody that looks a specific way, that thinks a specific way in our head. And again, it's very self-serving. You got to remember, this is very self-serving. What you think in terms of your future life is very self-serving. And what happens is when people start getting together is they start to put those expectations on somebody else. Now, in the beginning of most relationships, when people are very smiling and happy and having fun and they're getting along, what's happening is that you're kind of thinking that, okay, well, I enjoy this person's company and I'm having such fun with them, that it almost seems like they're living up to that whole fantasy. And the problem starts usually around 3 months after these people meet, or individuals meet. This is where the cracks of most relationships start to appear, because what happens is a certain situation comes about that's could be just blown out of proportion. Maybe it does happen, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's, you know, somebody was talking to you and I don't like that shouldn't have happened. What you're actually doing is you're actually attacking that person for not living up to what you think they should be doing. And that again is based on your own fantasy, and this idea that you're not understanding that nobody can do that. Nobody can live up to your expectations and your fantasies and what you think is your ideal situation. The third problem comes with the fact that the individuals, again, don't necessarily realize how they can prevent the very scenarios and situations that they would like to see happen. And if we look back at what I was just talking about there, you'll have situations where somebody might think something is happening. They're like, I'm dating this girl and she's being hit on by a guy and I don't like that and I'm getting very upset. And you know, you might not even be near them to hear what they're saying, But you could just be jumping the gun and jumping to conclusions and deciding that I just don't like this. You know, the girl that I thought you were didn't act and behave this way. The girl that was in my head, in my fantasies, doesn't act and behave that way. So, you know, you might get upset. And then the problem is now you're going to attack this person, and they may not even be guilty. And now you attack this person, and they're going to be like, why are you getting mad at me? I didn't do anything wrong. But because you just don't let go of this overall hold that this fantasy has, is you can actually prevent yourself from ever actually having a real healthy relationship. So this is something that you really got to spend some time just really thinking about, and understand that it's not me saying, oh, everybody does it, and you know, or you know, nobody does it. It's a situation where even, you know, I still catch myself doing it from time to time. I still have to, like, you know, whoa, like, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. And what I've learned is that I got to really be focused on the here and now, and know that when I think about something, I got to, you know, I got to think of it in steps, not so much point A to point B. I got to think of it like, okay, I got to practice, I got to work on this, I got to, you know, time's going to come, and I'm, you know, it's eventually I'm going to get to that point. But I don't let any obstacles or anything that gets in my way disappoint me or prevent me from trying to achieve those goals. So at the beginning I said that there's nothing wrong with having dreams and fantasies. You should definitely have them. You just really have to incorporate a different way to perceive how you want your life to go, and what decisions you have to make to get to that point, and realize that you have a role in that. You have a huge role in whether or not those fantasies are even remotely going to come close, right? So it's just not point A to point B. You got to go from A, B, C, D, all the way down the line. And once you do that, you'll start to see that there's just going to be things that come up. There's just other aspects of life. Nobody's free from just being able to just go and follow their dreams and not have anything bad happen, or unexpected happen, right? We just have to go through those motions, and not let anything that can be a hiccup stop us from trying to get around, finding solutions and things like that. All too often, I think that's one of the other issues with living in a fantasy, is that once people get it to a point where they think they're on their way, and they get to that first problem or issue, they really struggle to actually get past that problem. And then you get into this pattern of, you either quit on it and then you start again, and then you get to a certain point and you quit on it, you start again and you quit on it. And I think that's where a lot of people spend a lot of their time living and thinking, is that, you know, well, if I would have done this differently. And it's, you know, start now. Start thinking differently now. Start thinking differently about your future now. Just understand that, you know, whoever comes in your life, you don't get to put these fantasy like impressions on people, and you know, you'll start to understand that it just takes its course, right? And we don't want to spend a lot of our time dwelling on past issues either, because, I mean, unless you're really looking at them the right way and understanding the role that you played in those past issues, you're never really going to take responsibility for the here and now, and you're never going to take that next step into achieving the dreams and goals that you want to achieve. So hopefully I didn't make that too confusing. Hopefully, if you do have any questions or comments, make sure you leave them down below. I am willing to, you know, rehash topics. There's no problem there. And feel free to, you know, any criticism, that's okay. Constructive, they're all fine. So I want you all to have a great day, and just remember that, you know, you got a dream, you got a goal. Just remember, there's steps, You can't just spend all your time dwelling on what you want to have happen and never actually doing anything to make that dream a reality. So again, have a great day, guys, and I'll see you next time.